new day. Pull your bridges up and tie your shoelace. Don't worry about them haters. Send them bouquets. Get that.
Hey everybody, welcome to Journey to Personal Greatness. This podcast is all about helping you to optimize your health, work and play at peak performance levels, and to finally pursue, first of all, define it, and then pursue what brings you most joy in life. And I want to use that from the approach of connecting mind, body, and spirit or soul, whatever you want to. That one word can mean a lot of things, but it's basically connecting with your authentic self and driving to your best ability. So today, I'm bringing on a repeated guest. Might as well call him my partner in crime now, Dr. Matt. He is a functional health doc and a leader in the movement of cause-based medicine. And from the name says cause-based, he's going back to what is the cause of why we're not performing at our best self. So today, our conversation and every conversation we have is going to be about how we can tap into this natural resources right beneath our skin, right beneath our skin. We don't have to always wait for some technology outside of ourselves to save us. We have this hidden potential within us that all we have to do is untap it, is get out of the way basically and let it do its job. And the thing is unbelievably amazing at the human body is always, and the human physiology is always wanting. It always wants to push the race forward, to push the human genome, the human biology. It always wants to evolve, always wants to get the best. It's been equipped. We just have to get out of our way. So today we're going to talk about how do you optimize your body for peak performance, for especially the mind, and using external endogenous or exogenous substances such as supplementation to get the most from our body. So, Dr. Flory, this is your expertise, is optimizing the brain, the physiology. So let's go to you. What say you, my
Sure
man?
thing. Well, I say hello. How are you today? Thanks for having me on, and we will certainly try to live up to every bit of that dialogue that you're putting out there. Because
Awesome.
you're right. If our goal is to live the happiest, healthiest life,
Hmm.
it matters how we create our environment around us. That you use the word exogenous, right? That means from outside
Right.
ourselves, right? Endogenous is we generate
Yep.
that. But how do we utilize our understanding of that which is around us, and in particular today, you had kind of uh, suggested we talk about a few different compounds and their effects on the brain and how we can
Hmm.
use them as an external source to impact our brain and our brain function. And I said, hey, that sounds like a good
Hmm.
idea.
All right. So let's dive in then, and let's dive in because I'm big on entrepreneurs and leaders. You think about it, that they have to show up, or anybody. This can apply to anyone, but we're gonna talk about those people who need to show up on a high level every single day, every single time. They have to think at peak performance levels. They have to perform at peak performance levels. How can they get the most out of their body? And that's what we're gonna lean on here, is giving you information about that. So let's talk about the top. What do you have? Top 4 or 5 supplements that can,
Yeah, I think we've got.
along with a great diet, by the way, along with a great diet. We won't eliminate that. These are supplements we're talking about, not replacements. So,
Right. Yeah, I've got a few of them. I think we got three. We got some. We can talk about DHA. We can touch upon some collagen, which we did.
right.
We touched upon that in brief on our Instagram live we did this past week, I think it was, and then
Right.
we've got
Yep.
the notorious GABA and glutamate
Oh,
neuroendocrine
yes. Yes.
hormones.
Awesome. Okay, let's rock and
So
roll.
you,
Let's
you just
where do
you
we
just
start?
started
Which
out
one?
wherever you like on that menu there.
All right. You know what? I'm gonna go to the last. Let's start with the last part, the GABA
Sure.
and glutamate.
Yeah.
Let's rock and roll.
So yeah, these two neuroendocrine molecules um, are at the forefront of the kind of understanding that has been developing over the past, say, decade or so. Once we got that microbiome mapped out, right, and we knew what was there, and we started having kind of a foundation and a framework for understanding what they did, there started to develop, and this is just so interesting. I mean, it blows the mind in some ways. There started to become this understanding that there was a direct communication between these organisms and ourself. I mean, we're literally talking about
Mhm.
a shared biological profile of chemistry that
Mhm.
that allows for these organisms, us and the microbiome, to literally communicate with each other
Mhm.
because some of that chemistry is exactly the same chemistry, right? We're talking about
Wow. Yep.
well, yeah, we're talking about chemistry that is we're talking about chemistry that is the type of thing that's like dopamine, right? Some of these catecholamines,
Mhm.
what
Yep.
brings awareness, the state of awareness, the state of reward, right, and energy and that sort of a thing to our
Right.
brain.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
that's just one example with the catecholamines or dopamine, right? Like we said, that's just one example of how it can
Yep.
so directly affect our awareness and our mood and that sort of a thing,
Yep.
right? So there's this whole kind of understanding now of how this works together. And GABA and glutamate are part of this conversation, right? So specifically,
Mhm.
what we're getting from the GABA glutamate balance, right? Because these two are intimately related. In fact, the glutamate is converted to GABA in the brain. Um, well,
Mhm.
glutamate's converted to GABA, right? The brain's one of the places where
Right.
that could happen. Yeah, but this conversion happens, and glutamate has neuroexcitatory
Mm.
effects, okay, on the central nervous
Right.
system, where GABA
Yep.
has a neurocalming, right, effect
Mhm.
on the central
Mhm.
nervous system. And so just from that part of the conversation, you can already appreciate the importance of balance there, right? We want to look at,
Right.
big
Yin
hot
and yang.
topics. Yeah, the yin and yang. We want to look at big hot topics in health that are part of this. Well, let's talk about hyperactivity. Okay, right?
Mhm.
ADHD.
Yep.
It started out as a kid's disorder. Well, not anymore, right? There's adult ADHD, and there's reasons for this,
Right.
right? It's not a separate type of condition; it's an imbalance in this chemistry that's going on.
Mhm.
And one of the things that can block that conversion from glutamate to GABA and imbalance the teeter totter, right? Like imbalance the equation so that we've got high levels of excitatory, or something that would produce hyperactivity, or you could call it some anxiety there too, right? There's these sorts of emotional states and mental states, brain function states, but the type of inflammation that comes from, say, a gut dysbiosis, a microbiome imbalance, an infection, chronic stress. These are the type of things that will ultimately block that conversion from the excitatory neurohormone to the calming neurohormone. And it's really important to understand that, because you can supplement with GABA, right? So we kind of get, circle
Right.
back around to this conversation of, okay, well, I can use these exogenous or external sources. You can supplement with GABA, right? Now, that's not
Mhm.
quite the
Yep.
depth of to which I often talk about it, because that's not there's this cause-based medicine, right? Well, why is it like that, right? Let's fix something that ultimately down the road is going to promote balance and stability, maybe without the external supplementation. But the fact is that you can externally supplement GABA, right? And
Right.
and GABA, the type of calming that it brings to the brain, is also it also brings awareness. So it's not you don't get
Mm.
sleepy, right? That's the important part about this GABA is that you're aware at the same time that the brain's calm.
Yeah, and a lot of times for a lot of entrepreneurs and leaders and high performance people, the brain is on use constantly creating, managing, problem solving all day long. And a lot of these leaders have trouble with sleep and recovery and REM and coming back from the day's assault. So
Right.
would these two, this combination, be a great one to add in to help performance,
Well, I think
as
what
well
you're
as as well as you said, going back to the cause, but will these two?
No, sure, certainly. Well, I think this is where you could maybe bring in something like the collagen, right?
All right, here we go.
In terms of the specific kind of question you're asking, because when you are in a high performance situation, right, whether it's athletic or just professional, right, like business,
Yeah,
career, those sorts of things, for whatever
yeah,
reason, maybe you're an air traffic controller, right, right.
right, yeah,
So
right.
you know, it's the systems in our body which are most metabolically active, right? Those are the
Hmm.
ones that produce more free radicals. They have the largest amount of inflammation, okay, from their general activity and from the stress that they undergo. And so they can, sometimes, especially something like our nervous system, can also then be susceptible to a damage because of that excess, right? And collagen, especially, there's different types of collagen, especially type 6 collagen, has been shown to protect brain cells, okay, against some of the damage that our brains tend to show. And specifically even with dementia, right? And some of the plaques that can form in these conditions like Alzheimer's and that sort of a thing, right? So, I would say that the GABA glutamate balance, if there's hyperexcitability, if there's anxiety, GABA could be a good choice, right? As an external source to help balance that equation while you
Right,
figure out the cause and get it established. If we're talking about protecting that high performing brain, then we want to talk about maybe
right.
really maybe using some collagen and whatnot.
Love it. So let's roll right. Good segue. Let's talk about collagen.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, let's do it.
Sure. So, we spoke previously about collagen, um, and really touched upon certain things like its support for detoxification, um, uh, some of the role that it plays within that, and each of those functions, like a detoxification, is also going to take more and more and more pressure, right? More and more pressure um, off of our brain function. It helps us clean up, right? It helps us kind of keep house, right? Clean up the house, right? After or
Right.
during
Yep.
even that demand for peak performance. Now, one of the things that we talked about collagen more specifically earlier this week about is its role within the gut and that sort of a thing. But we were looking
Yep.
at this. We were
Yep.
looking at the same sorts of things that are going to influence brain function, right? During that conversation, right? So the influence of glutamine and some other of the uh, amino acids within collagen on calming inflammation, right? So we see that it
Right. Yep.
works. It works it works through different in pathways for various systems of our body, right?
Right. Yep. And so we've known collagen. Again, when Dr. Matt refers to, we spoke about it earlier. We also want to let you know on every Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, we are live on Instagram, and we'll put the connection in the show notes. But we're live on Instagram, so if you have any questions when you listen to this podcast, you want to catch us live, join us there every Tuesday night. Information will be in the show notes. So you were mentioning collagen. Now, everyone when they think of collagen, they think of skin. Skin lotions
Yep.
and
Yep.
various to make your skin look vibrant and healthy.
Yeah.
But now you're telling me it's great for the gut. Uh,
Great for the gut.
yeah, dive in. And you were talking about the idea that stress, external stress, internal stress can reduce the villi, or let's
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll get you to explain what that is and the great metaphor we have of how you need that surface area. So
Mm-hmm.
just dive quickly into that conversation for me, just to lay it out how collagen helps with gut and performance and brain.
Yeah. Well, the root of that really lies in its capacity to support structure within the body, right? So these villi in the gut that we were talking about, they're little finger-like projections that extend up off of the surface of our gut tube, the lining,
Right.
the
The
inside of the
internal.
gut tube.
Right.
Yeah. And the importance of this structure, this projection off of that that surface, is to increase the surface area. You got to think, you could either have a gut that was just completely smooth all the way on the inside, but the reality is to increase the surface area and therefore the amount of area, the tissue that is available for absorbing our nutrition, right? We now have these finger-like projections. What, millions of them, right? Like tons
Right.
of them, right? That type of a concept.
Right.
They're all over. They're supposed to be robust through the gut, right? And so the collagen helps support
Yeah.
that structure, right? So when it comes to things like brain function and all of that, well, collagen, or parts of collagen, things like glycine, they're going to help produce muscle mass and this sort of thing, which the more muscle mass we have, the more efficient our body is in its metabolism, and it's cleaner metabolism. We're managing our glucose better. The mitochondria are healthier. There's just so many of these topics that are improved when some of these uh, components that are influenced by collagen are healthy.
Yeah, I love it. And so the gut, then the surface here in the gut, with the increase, because the gut, when you think about it, the gut is the first place when you eat, and I want to remind everybody, silly reminder, but remind you anyways, we should be eating for nutrition, not for taste. So when the food goes in, it has to be assimilated, so broken up and distributed through the body and the blood and go to organs and tissues that need it. So a healthy functioning gut is essential for peak performance, and collagen helps with this surface area, giving you a large enough surface area for you to have this assimilation happen, this exchange happen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the genesis of it.
Absolutely. Plus, if we're talking about collagen overall, just to kind of wrap up, probably the collagen conversation, but there's a lot of amino acids in there, right? And some of those
Right.
amino acids are going to be used for the production of neurotransmitters, hormones, other more larger macromolecules that our body's going to need.
Mhm. Yeah, awesome. And we're going to dive into that a bit more, but I want to then now let's go to DHA.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so with this hormone in particular, um, it's a precursor, right? It's a precursor. Um, it's a precursor to some of our hormone function, right? So it's a necessary part of the chain, the supply chain, if you will, through all this. And
Right.
the levels of it can suffer when we are under a chronic stress response. Okay, because if you think about a supply
Mm.
chain or something, well, if we need paper, well, we're gonna, we need trees first, right? And then that can down the line be converted into paper. Well, the tree for DHEA as if DHEA is paper, the tree for DHEA is what's called pregnenolone, right? That's its precursor, right? And
Mm.
pregnenolone
Hmm.
gets sucked up. It gets sucked up when we're stressed, when we have chronic inflammation situations. Maybe we have an injury we're recovering from. That's one. But all of our personal, professional, physical stressors are going to contribute to this. And the more chronic those things are, the more we're leaching, right, away from this DHEA. And that's not a good thing, because DHEA is what's known as a multifunctional steroid. Okay, we know the steroid hormones are
Right.
things that what are they? They're associated with out there with as
Ah,
anti-inflammatories, right? With recovery, we know that with a lot of our professional
yeah.
athletes, we hear about them getting those steroid injections. So
Yeah.
DHEA with the nervous system helps to kind of balance the neurons against some of the hyperexcitatory, inflammatory conditions
Hmm.
that could develop, right, out there. And so it's a counteract. It counters some of that neurodegeneration that happens with inflammation and with this increased activity that's out there.
Yeah, I love it. And what are some of I want to go back all three that we just touched on. Are they available in foods? I know with supplementation, the beauty of supplementation is that we can target a specific, macro and micronutrient and give you that nutrient that you're deficient in. So that's the beauty of that. Now, what are some foods that are available if you're eating right and you're pooping right, your gut's right, and all of the rights? What are some foods that they're available in?
So one of my favorite sources for collagen is bone broth, right? And I've even made our own batches of bone broth using um, an instant pot, right, pressure cooker or something like that. And
Right.
my favorite source for doing it is actually chicken feet. Right, the
Right.
chicken
Yep.
feet you can get, you fairly inexpensive. Throw them in there, and you can really make a super rich collagen, super healthy amino acid, anything. Right? I mean, because then once you have that broth, well, maybe you're using it instead of water for steaming vegetables, right? Maybe you're using it to create a soup or
Yeah.
something of that sort, right? So there's so much you can do with it after that point, and that fortifies lots of your food choices with that collagen, right, and
Hmm.
those amino acids. So I love that one.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we have.
Yeah.
So with GABA and glutamate, yes, there are. Now I'm gonna I'm a person who I remember a lot, but I'm all about kind of organizing my information. So one of my personal strategies is to know where to go for information that I have to reference, right? Because there's just so much out there. So yes, there's certainly issues with foods having higher amounts of glutamate. And if you already have a hyperactivity situation um, or anxiety, then those foods can exacerbate that. They can certainly trigger them and make them worse.
Right.
Remember that one of the main things you want to have happen is for your body to convert glutamate into GABA, right? So if that's happening
Right.
efficiently,
Yep.
then maybe it's not so much of a big deal if you're eating high glutamate foods. Maybe we need to look at why that conversion's not there. And again, the classic reason why the conversion for glutamate to GABA would deteriorate, it would lower and imbalance it towards the anxiety or hyperactive side, is because of some reason why there's chronic gut inflammation going on, right?
Right. That's the cause again. Going back to the cause, right?
Right. Now, when you talk about
Yeah.
DHEA, I'm not so sure that we have as strong of a case or conversation about finding it in a lot of food sources. But what we did already talk about that can be kind of mentioned here, right, is that the precursor for this DHEA was that pregnenolone stuff, right? That pregnenolone molecule or compound,
Right.
whatever you say. Well, guess what? The
Yep.
precursor for pregnenolone is cholesterol, right? So
Mm.
this idea that
Yep.
cholesterol is just simply a bad guy, it's bunk. It couldn't be any worse information. I
Right.
mean, you've got Harvard Medical School, right? This came out. Boy, I don't even know how long ago at this point. Maybe 15 years ago, even at this point, with 10 to 15, with landmark, industry debunking information research on the fact that 80% of the cholesterol in our bloodstream is produced by the liver. It's produced on demand of the rest of our body and our brain telling our liver to produce it, right? Only
Right. That's how
20%.
important it is.
It is important. Only 20% could even potentially come from our diet, right? But
Right.
even the 20% that comes from our diet, we shouldn't be afraid of it, right? It gets converted into things we
Yeah.
need. And that's the topic about how cholesterol is even remotely related to other types of lipoproteins that actually do have an impact on cardiovascular problems, cardiac arrest, heart attacks, right? That
Right.
conversation is one for a different time, right? Because there's so much to go into there. But
Hmm.
we have to let go of this cholesterol causes heart attacks. It causes cardiovascular events. That
Right.
is false.
Right. Right. And then, so that sounds to me like another day topic to dive into.
It absolutely is. But we can take that and we can wrap up kind of this conversation because cholesterol is really just a few steps away from being converted into DHEA, right?
Right.
Which our
Yep.
our, our brain, the rest of our body needs, right? If you
Yeah.
get low at DHEA, well, now you could be experiencing symptoms of low T, right? For
Yeah.
females,
Yep.
really erratic or painful, menstrual cycles and whatnot. So, that's the real damage of this concept of cholesterol bad. Cholesterol is good. We need it for these very important things.
All right. Awesome. Okay. So we have more to dive into here, everybody. So that will be enough for you to chew on. Go back and review this again. Three top supplementation that you can add to your either supplement or change your diet and increase foods that will lead to that. But again, as Dr. Matt will tell you, if the cause is a gut problem, we'd suggest you seek a professional and go after that gut problem first, and then backwards engineer from there. So, but this is all about how do you, as a peak performer, as a person who demands more from their bodies and their physiology, your mind, how do you maximize, get the juice out of life and using natural ways to do it? So, if you need more info, you can connect with Dr. Flory. We'll put his connection in the show notes. You can connect with myself. We're collaborating either way, or seek a professional that dives into a deeper dive for you to assess and access all these natural tools. But that's what we do. We really focus on how do you maximize, get the most from your body and your mind. So awesome. All right, Dr. Matt, thank you again.
Thank you, Alvin. It's fun being here.
Awesome. We'll see you soon. And for everybody listening, remember why we do this. We want you to be relentless about going after what brings you joy and passion. We call it personal greatness. Until next time, everybody, peace and love. subscribe, like, and share this in case there's someone you know that needs to hear this information. All right, until next time. Peace and love, everybody.